My name is Alex Gifford. I live in Romford, Essex, and I'd like to read to you from a 19th century journal, Mayhews London. Chapter 1. The Street Folk. Of the 1,000 millions of human beings that are said to constitute the population of the entire globe, there are socially, morally, and perhaps even physically considered, but two distinct and broadly marked races, the wanderers and the settlers, the vagabond and the citizen, the nomadic and the civilized tribes. The nomadic races of England are of many distinct kinds, from the habitual vagrant, half beggar, half thief, sleeping in barns, tents and casual wards, to the mechanic on tramp, obtaining his bed and supper from the trade societies in the different towns on his way to seek work. Between these two extremes there are several immediate varieties, consisting of pedlars, showmen, harvestmen, and all that large class who live by either selling, showing or doing something through the country. These are, so to speak, the rural nomads, not confining their wanderings to any one particular locality, but ranging from one end of the land to the other. Besides these, there are the urban and suburban wanderers, or those who follow some itinerant occupation in and round the large towns. Such are, in the metropolis, more particularly the pickpockets, the beggars, the prostitutes, the street sellers, the street performers, the cabmen, the coachmen, the watermen, the sailors, and such like. Those who obtain their living in the streets of the metropolis are a very large and varied class, indeed the means resorted to in order to pick up a crust, as the people call it, in the public thoroughfares. And such in many instances it literally is, are so multifarious that the mind is long baffled in its attempts to reduce them to scientific order or classification. It would appear, however, that the street people may be all arranged under 6 distinct genera or kinds. There are severally street sellers, street buyers, street finders, street performers, street artisans, and street labourers. Of the number of costermongers and other street folk, the number of costermongers, that is to say of those street sellers attending the London green and fish markets, appears to be, from the best data at my command, now 30,000 men, women and children. The costermongering class extends itself yearly, and it is computed that for the last 5 years it has increased considerably faster than the general metropolitan population. This increase is derived partly from all the children of costermongers following the father's trade, but chiefly from working men, such as the servants of greengrocers or of innkeepers, when out of employ, taking a coster's barrow for a livelihood, and the same being done by mechanics and labourers out of work. At the time of the famine in Ireland, it is calculated that the number of Irish obtaining a living in the London streets must have been at least doubled. During the summer months and fruit season, the average number of costermongers attending Covent Garden Market is about 2,500 per market day. In the strawberry season, there are nearly double as many, there being at that time a large number of Jews who come to buy during that period on a Saturday morning, from the commencement to the close of the market. As many as 4,000 costers have been reckoned purchasing at Covent Garden. Through the winter season, however, the number of costermongers does not exceed upon the average 1,000 per market morning. Of the varieties of street folk in general and costermongers in particular, among the street folk there are many distinct characters of people differing as widely from each other in tastes habits, thoughts and creed, as one nation from another. Of these, the costermongers form by far the largest and certainly the most broadly marked class. They appear to be a distinct race, perhaps originally of Irish extraction, seldom associating with any other of the street folks and being all known to each other. The patterers, or men who cried the last dying speeches in the street, and those who help off their wares by long harangues in the public thoroughfares, are again a separate class. These, to use their own term, are the aristocracy of the street sellers. Despite despising the costers for their ignorance, are boasting that they live by their intellect. The public, they say, do not expect to receive from them an equivalent for their money. They pay to hear them talk. Compared with the costermongers, the patterers are generally an educated class, and among them are some classical scholars, one clergyman and many sons of gentlemen. They appear to be the counterparts of the old mountebanks or street doctors. As a body, they seem far less improvable than the costers, being more knowing and less impulsive. The street performers differ again from those. These appear to possess many of the characteristics of the lower class of actors, viz. A strong desire to excite admiration, an indisposition to pursue any settled occupation, a love of the taproom, though more for the society and display than for the drink connected with it, a great fondness for finery and predilection for the performance of dexterous and dangerous feats. Then there are the street mechanics or artisans, quiet, melancholy, struggling men, who are unable to find any regular employment at their own trade, and made up a few things, and taken to hawk them in the streets as the last shift of independence. Another distinct class of street folk are the blind people, mostly musicians in a rude way, who after the loss of their eyesight have sought to keep themselves from the workhouse by some little excuse for alms-seeking. These, so far as my experience goes, appear to be a far more deserving class than is usually supposed. Their affliction, in most cases, seems to have chastened them and to have given a peculiar religious cast to their thoughts. Such are the several varieties of street folk. Intellectually considered, looked at a national point of view, they likewise include many distinct people. Among them are to be found the Irish fruit sellers, the Jew clothesmen, the Italian organ boys, French singing women, the German brass bands, the Dutch bar-broom girls, the Highland bagpipe players, and the Indian crossing sweepers, all of whom I here shall treat of in due order. The costermonger class, or order, has also its many varieties. These appear to be in the following proportions. One half of the entire class are costermongers proper, that is to say, the calling with them is hereditary, and perhaps has been so for many generations, while the other half is composed of 3/8 Irish and 1/8 mechanics, tradesmen and Jews. Under the term costermonger is here included only such street sellers as deal in fish, fruit and vegetables, purchasing their goods at the wholesale green and fish markets. Of these, some carry on their business at the same stationery stall or standing in the street, while others go on rounds. The itinerant costermongers, as distinguished from the stationary fish streets mongers and greengrocers, have in many instances regular rounds, which they go daily, and which extend from 2 to 10 miles. The longest are those which embrace the suburban part. The shortest are through streets thickly peopled by the poor, where duly to work a single street consumes in some instances an hour. There are also chance rounds. Men working these carry their wares to any part in which they hope to find customers. The costermongers, moreover, diversify their labours by occasionally going on a country round, travelling on these excursions in all directions, from 30 to 90 or even 100 miles from the metropolis. Some again confine their callings chiefly to the neighbouring races and fairs. So endeth the first chapter. I'll see you next time.